Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5, Qapla, and welcome to my review for Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episode 10, The Galactic Barrier. And luckily this week I can understand at least why it's called the Galactic Barrier. Thank you to everyone last week who tried to help me understand why it was called Rubicon. It obviously is not named after a Jeep Rubicon nor the Rubicon Trail. Oh well. Today's episode takes place in the Galactic Barrier. Why can't they just jump to the place they were going? Well, they explain that. Although I don't buy it. But let's start with the breakdown of the episode, a quick rundown. The episode starts with Dr. Kovich giving the world's worst pep talk. Michael Burnham is there. Saru is there. The president of Navarre is there. The president of Earth is there. And some random delegates, including the delegate from Earth is there. Admiral Vance of Vance Refrigeration is there. And there's a new guy, a doctor, Hirai. He's I guess, Japanese doctor. He's like one of my new favorites now on the show. He seems to laugh and have fun with everything, even though he's at obviously a very important meeting talking about possibly the destruction of all life in the galaxy, and he still finds humor in a random comment made by Dr. Kovich about confirmation bias. You just have to watch it, I guess. And by that is not in any way me telling you to go ahead and watch this episode. Like most of Star Trek Discovery, this episode is not fit for human consumption. But if you were being forced to watch it through some moral obligation you feel as a Star Trek fan, like I am, then it was nice to have, a bench in which to sit for a short minute before continuing down the road of Klingon pain sticks. In fact, they mentioned Klingons in this episode at this table. But once again, we have yet to see a Klingon in Discovery in the future. Once again, reminding us that Discovery refuses to show us a Klingon because they refuse to pick a side and either cement that Klingons still look like they did horrible in seasons 1 and 2, or if they've finally gone ahead and, thought better of it and brought back the more classic look of Klingons, which even Star Trek Picard seemed to have done when they showed us a picture of Commander Worf from TNG. And speaking of Star Trek Picard, next week, guys, March 3rd, both Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard open at the same time. So next week, I've got 2 of these reviews to do. Oh my God. Anyway, they have this long meeting of how they're going to do first contact. Why these diplomats are involved, I don't understand. First contact is a captain's job. I don't like that Captain Burnham is the subject of every single episode, that she gets every single, important job. But fine, if you're going to do it, send her and let her go do it. That's what a captain and their crew is for. But for some reason, this is too big for even the bestest ever captain. So they're sending her full of diplomats. Okay, she's going to have a whole bunch of delegates and she doesn't know it yet, and the president of the Federation. Because the president of the Federation, we hear in this episode that she was the Federation's topmost ambassador for 20 years. And so she needs to be there. Well, if you're sending all these diplomats, what does it matter who you send for captain? Is she just a car service? Is she just your Uber driver to bring you to the 10C planet? Or do you expect her to actually carry out the first contact duty? Because it goes back and forth. But to me, it seems like they expect Michael Burnham to do the first contact mission, but for some reason, she's going to have 15 diplomats with her. I would only imagine Captain Kirk or even Captain Picard telling all the diplomats to get the hell off his starship. If he's going to do first contact, let him do it his way. Judge him after the fact, but stay off my ship while I do it. So I really don't respect her for allowing this to happen, but I also don't respect Admiral Vance in this case for even allowing it to get to this point. He should be sticking up for the Starfleet captains and say, listen, President Relic, you were elected to serve as president of the Federation. You were not elected to go on a first contact mission outside the galaxy, where there's a very reasonable chance you will probably die. Because they're already talking about the Discovery crew almost in the past tense. Like, they already know they're going to die. They're not coming back from this. This is a 1 in a million chance. So why? What else we got? Commander Bryce, who only last episode, for the first time, did we realize Commander Bryce have any sort of personality. He was very much pro Booker's Mr. Booker plan to destroy the DMA, which is at odds with most of Starfleet, how they felt. So we only last week did Mr. Bryce get his own personality apart from your standard toe the line Starfleet type. And this episode, Mr. Bryce is leaving the ship. Now, it's not that he's being punished. He's supposedly going to work with Dr. Kovich on some type of secret plan or whatever. So Commander Bryce is out, but don't worry. We get a new lieutenant who, granted, it's not an exact match. In fact, if you put their pictures next to each other, which I will do in editing, they're not identical twins by any account. However, they both just happen to be black. They both just happen to have beards. And they both just happen to smile when I took the screenshots. Let's put it this way. They're not twins by any means. But on the other hand, Bryce's stunt double is not out of a job. I don't know why you would replace somebody with so many of the same physical characteristics if it wasn't to save money in editing or something that just, it's not natural. It is extremely unlikely. Like when I left my job because I got sick and they had to hire a replacement. Yes, the person they hired that took my desk was also named Joe, but they were significantly younger and significantly more Asian. than I am. It's just the way things work. It's very rare that in an organization, especially a large organization, you're going to get somebody who just happens to, have the same major characteristics the same as the person you replace. It's okay. I smell something fishy going on and I don't like it. So Saru, who last week Dr. Kolber told him that he should pursue the Vulcan president romantically because he wanted to, and it was clear the Vulcan president seemed into him. Well, of course, the Vulcan president is around today, so Saru tries to tell her, and he says, maybe we could be more than friends. And just as she's about to react, another Vulcan comes onto screen and talks in her ear, and she's like, I gotta go. Bye. I'm sorry. I'll talk to you later. And she darts, which is okay. It's not the worst reaction. God knows I've had worse reactions when I've told women such things. But I don't understand why, like 2 minutes later, Saru is strutting down the hallway and asking Dr. Kolber to make an announcement to the crew about something. I still don't understand, in fact, what's going on there. He gets cut off too, so that goes nowhere. Like, now I honestly, maybe I remember it wrong, but I've watched this episode twice, and I don't know what was he expecting an announcement of? What was he going to say? He should be cautiously optimistic at best, and maybe upset that she didn't, she didn't smile. I mean, okay, Vulcans don't smile, but she didn't really do anything I saw that would make me think she was honestly interested. She seemed more distant this episode than she ever has with Saru. It was kind of weird. I'm sorry, I forgot this. Back in that beginning scene, and that first scene is, I'd say, 25 to 30% of the quality of the entire episode, because it's a big drop after that first scene. Dr. Kovich uses the expression a 3-hour tour. He says that he's so happy to hear that Discovery crew can't wait to go out on a 3-hour tour of outside the galaxy. And Saru looks at him and says, Dr. Kovich, it's going to take significantly longer than 3 hours. He's like, it's an expression. I am so happy to hear that Gilligan's Island remains a part of the culture up until the 31st century, the 32nd century. Can you imagine in the year 3100 and something that they are still talking about the 3-hour tour? I mean, maybe they don't even remember where the hell it came from at that point. But I for one, am shocked that they acknowledge the existence of Gilligan's Island in the Star Trek universe. Now, they didn't say it was from Gilligan's Island, but where the hell else is a 3-hour tour coming from? I found it funny. I found that really funny on so many levels. Easily the worst part of this episode, and it takes up half the episode, so I'm cutting a lot of it out, but Booker and Tarka are on a planet. They have to find, Tarka has to find, okay. Let's back up a second. For reasons unknown, the mycelial network, the mushroom network, can no longer take them to 10C, the civilization 10C. It can no longer take them outside the galaxy. Now, this is bullshit. So back in season 1, they told us specifically that the mushroom network would take them anywhere in the universe and anywhere in time and anywhere in the multiverse they wanted to go. That it connected everything and everywhere. Everything and everywhere. And they used it to travel to the mirror universe. But that was supposed to be just the beginning. They were supposed to be able to travel to any of the infinite timelines, anywhere, not only in our galaxy, but in any galaxy, in any fact, any point in the entire universe and in the entirety of time, they should have been able to get to once Stamets figured out how to navigate the highway. Well, talk about being overpowered. I, at the time, was furious. Why would you create a device that lets you go anywhere at any time, even other universes? It made no sense that A, such a thing could exist, and that B, it could exist at that time in history, because even if humans, even if the Federation decided this was too dangerous a technology to have and destroyed it, which they didn't, but even if they had, that means that some other race somewhere, whether it be Romulans, Klingons, Cardassians, or some unknown race somewhere in the galaxy, has also already discovered this technology in all likelihood. And what have they done with it? What are they doing with it? What will they do with it? It's a time-traveling tech. Once you have it, you control the entire history. You control the history of the galaxy. So while I trust the Federation to have said this is too dangerous to use, do I trust every race that has come up with this tech to realize it's too dangerous to use? No, I don't. And by all rights, some race in the galaxy would have already been using this technology to change things to better themselves. So, how is it really the truth that humans were the first person in the entire galaxy to invent this? Even when we know there were civilizations far more evolved than we are now, or we are in the future, that existed in this galaxy hundreds of thousands of years ago. At least in Trek canon they did. So I'm okay with the change. So the change they made this episode is that the Mushroom Network doesn't go past the galactic barrier. In fact, it doesn't even go up to the galactic barrier. It thins a lot as they get close to the barrier. So Stamets estimates that the best he can do is get them 4 or 5 light years away from the galactic barrier. And as it turns out, he actually can't get them closer than 9 light years from the galactic barrier, to which Michael Burnham gives him shit. And that's not sarcasm. She was really pissed. She's like, you owe me 5 light years. And she yells at him that this is going to set them behind on their time. Now, he doesn't realize that how big, that when they left the Federation, they had about 17 hours before this DMA jumped again, because this new DMA they put in place is like version 2.0. So it's faster than the DMA that was there before. So had they not destroyed the first DMA, they would have had a week before it moved. The new DMA, they've got 17 hours. So that's the fire under their ass. But also, right before they left the galaxy, when they were at the edge of the galaxy trying to figure out how to actually cross the galactic barrier, they started receiving a coded message. Now, the entire coded message didn't come through, but the president and Michael Burnham watched it in private, and it was Admiral Vance saying that they know where the DMA is going next, and I called it a couple of weeks ago. It's going to Vulcan, or at least Navarre. But not only Vulcan. It's so big, it's also going to affect Earth. But for some reason, Admiral Vance says it's going to affect Navarre, Titan, and Earth. Titan is a piss little colony around a moon of Saturn. Why would you even bring up Titan? Yes, we heard it's the beginning of season 3. Michael Burnham made peace between this tiny little colony of humans on Titan, which Earth just forgot existed somehow, and Earthlings, because the Titanians, the Titanites, whatever, they're humans on Titan were too stupid to not wear helmets. So every time they came to Earth, the Earthlings thought they were aliens. I'm not making this shit up. This is how it was written. The Earthlings thought they were dealing with aliens because they were wearing helmets and they couldn't see their human faces. So Michael Burnham had to finally bring peace to Earth and Titan by forcing the Titanites to remove their helmets, and the Earthlings could see they were human all along, and boy, did they have egg on their face. For 20 years, they've been killing the Titans who've been coming to Earth, trying to get help, and instead they would leave dead. Because nobody thought, hey, fucker, I'm human over here. I'm human underneath this alien-looking suit. Why would they create alien-looking suits to wear? I don't know. But you would say, hey, idiot, I'm human. Okay, I'm allowed here. This is my planet too. No, they forgot. They just forgot. They forgot there's a fucking colony on Titan. God damn it, I can talk to Titan today with fucking radio stuff I could buy at a closed Radio Shack. You could make an antenna that can speak to people on Titan if there was anyone there. And yet in the year 3100, Earth just forgot they had anyone. I can't do it. I can't get past the fact that we forgot there was people on Titan. I'll be back.
1 hour later.
Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry. It's on Titan. Fuck you! It's Titan. How do you forget that there's a colony just a fucking 3 planets away? It doesn't make any fucking sense.
2 hours later.
So, do you remember back in season 3 when Book was going to get that thing planted in his neck, that once it was in his neck, it would keep him locked in, because if he ever left the prison camp, it would just explode and his head would pop off. And it was this whole big plot point that if Book got that in, his life was basically over. And I think we had a whole episode or 2 on Book having to escape the emerald chain before that thing gets put in the back of his neck. Because once it's in the back of your neck, your life is basically over. There's no taking it out. You're fucked. Well, guess what happens? In this episode, when we hear the backstory for Tarka and his boyfriend Oros. Oros, I believe his partner or his friend is named Oros. O-Rose. Anyway, they both have those things in the back of their neck. But as it turns out, we get the whole history. Book makes the terrible mistake of demanding to know at gunpoint what Tarka's story is before they go any further, because he's pissed. He's pissed Tarka, destroyed the DMA because he could have got people killed, and now he's pissed it didn't work. And Tarka's like, well, I followed the science. He basically said, I followed the science, and it's not my fault. The science was wrong, He's like, listen, in science, this happens. You're wrong about hypotheses. It happened. So maybe a warning against following the science, inadvertent warning. But he's like, well, here, okay. So he actually gives us the story in way too much detail. It is so effing boring. Suffice to say, he was originally sent by Osira and the Emerald Chain to figure out what this guy Oros was working on. They knew Oros was working on something off the books. It turns out he was working on this transporter to beam between beam between universes. To be honest, it sounds exactly like what the Terrans were able to do in Deep Space Nine when they were able to beam from the mirror universe to the station all the fucking time. They had thousands. They seemed to have no end to the number of transporter devices they had, so they could beam between universes whenever they effing wanted. So this guy was working on a way to beam to a specific universe, a universe which he calculated must exist, a universe where it was the most peaceful universe of all, and he called it, I don't know, Clendia or something, but basically it's translated to home. And so Tarka was originally sent to figure out what he was working on, but he was undercover as a lab assistant for Oros. Over time, apparently Tarka kind of took a liking to Oros. Oros had some pretty bad PTSD from losing lab partners in the past during prison breaks, and during a particularly bad PTSD breakdown, Tarka puts his hands on Oros and just like hugs him and holds him tight and holds him close while Oros is having a breakdown. And after that, Oros trusts Tarka. They become good friends. At some point, Tarka stops working for Osira and I guess just starts giving in false reports. Tarka explained that he's working on a transporter, but then he says this transporter has no hope of ever working. So I guess they just figure it's easier to let him go about working on the transporter to keep him happy while he does his daytime work for the Emerald Chain. At some point, they decide they need, he realizes it is going to work and they need power. So right now, remember the whole reason he was doing this about the DMA was because of the awesome amount of power he needed, that Tarka needed to try this out. Well, how much power did they need? Well, as it turns out, all they needed was a geothermal power station and a warp core. So what? A geothermal power source, I mean, we have those today. A geothermal power source is just a fancy way of heating water. Okay, I am sure a warp core of a starship puts out more power than a geothermal power station. I mean, it's antimatter. It's all power. Antimatter is far more efficient at creating energy than geothermal. So 2 warp cores, or the warp core of a bigger ship, would be more than enough power if a geothermal station and a single warp core is all one needed to use this transporter tech. Now, I will grant you, they failed. They turned on the transporter and it failed to work. And their attempt to beam off caused the guards to come. And the guards literally beat the shit out of Oros, and they start beating Tarka, and the guards tell Oros that, yeah, Tarka was sent here to tell us what you were doing, and yeah, he never cared about you. He was just here to tell Osira what was going on. And Tarka starts crying. He's like, no, don't stop it, shut up. And Tarka's like, you don't understand. I didn't know you back then. And he's true, he didn't know him. He wouldn't be the first person to fall in love with their mark, or whatever you want to call it. But then Tarka gets up, beats the shit out of the guy who was beating him physically. Also, the guy has a phaser, mind you. He pulls the phaser away from the guy, kills all the people that were there, all the bad guys. So it's just Tarka and Oros. But they've got these things in the back of their necks, so they can't go anywhere, except that Tarka just shoots the phaser into the back of his own neck, and wouldn't you know it, a single phaser blast, and the thing in the neck just comes out. This thing that was put in their necks, that was impossible to get removed without killing you, well, in this episode, a single phaser blast to the back of the neck disables it. And then you just pull it out, and nobody gets hurt. And it looked a little painful to shoot yourself in the back of the neck, but you don't even get stunned. You don't even get knocked out. It's just like, It's like, I guess, getting your ear pierced. It's a quick pain, but it's over. And then you just pop it out, and you're safe. And that's it. You're done. So you're like, well, maybe that was just a fluke. Well, no, it wasn't a fluke, because Tarka then has to remove it from Oros. So he shoots Oros in the back of the neck, and Oros flinches even less than Tarka did. And boom, he pops it out, and it's gone. And so they're both completely free. They can go anywhere. They can leave and not fear their head exploding anymore. For some reason, though, Oros stays behind, and he just tells Tarka to leave. So Tarka leaves, and later we find out Tarka was hiding in a cave for a couple of weeks, and he would come back and check to see what was going on with Oros. Oros forgave Tarka, and he was still planning to take Tarka with him, but he said, just come back, you'll find me. Anyway, one day, Tarka says he saw a energy overload at the base, and the ships all flew away. And when he came, the place was empty, but Oros left their symbol for home, or that one universe that he's trying to get to, etched into the wall. So Tarka is pretty sure that Oros made it to wherever he was going, and that symbol on the wall was his way of telling Tarka to meet him there. So if a week later the guy was able to get the transporter to work, he obviously did not have access to all the energy the DMA has, right? Or whatever it's called. He didn't need a source of power from outside the galaxy. the power he used to transport was all from a geothermal base and possibly a warp core. So why does Tarka need this ridiculous amount of power? Okay, power of 1 billion suns to use his transporter, when his friend literally transported using geothermal power and a single warp core. Doesn't make any sense. The point is, we have almost a full hour in this episode, and we have yet to see 10C. And no, we never get to see 10C in this episode. We do get to see, Tal is back. She's at the beginning of the episode. They are at the beginning of the episode, and it's fucking frustrating because Stamets is giving a story about Tal and about how Tal fixed something, but every time he says what should be she, and I'm sorry, but should be she, they use the pronoun they. But he says they did this, they did that, and I'm sorry, but I was fucking confused for 2 fucking minutes. Because who the fuck is they? Like, who's doing this? Who's this they? Like, who is he talking about? Like, there's a group of people. They. They is fucking plural. They is a plural pronoun. I don't care if you want to choose your pronoun and you want to make up a word like Z, fine. I get it. I get it, and I will do my best to honor it to a point. Okay? If you want to say Z, I'm a Z instead of a he or a she, I get it. But don't fucking pick a word that already exists and is fucking plural, because then you fuck everything up. You can't do they. They is already taken. So the other thing in this episode, Discovery has to get through the galactic barrier because Stamets can't jump through the barrier because reasons. So fine. So they come out of warp. They come out of the Mushroom Network 9 light years from the barrier. They then head to the barrier at warp speed. They get there, I don't know how long, but they make it there. And now they have to figure out how to get through it. You would think they had planned this, but they had only thought theoretically, I guess. They didn't know what was going to be there. Apparently what's there are these big orbs that bubbles. Now, if the bubble is colorful, that means it's a stable bubble. If it's a grayscale bubble, it means it's not stable. 95% of the bubbles, according to Stamets, are grayscale. They're not stable enough for the ship to go in. So even when the ship goes in a stable, colorful bubble, they turn the saturation way down so that your visual range changes to very close to, but not completely grayscale. Like, it's when you turn the saturation knob way down. And so they use this visual cue to tell us when you're in a bubble and when you're not in a bubble. The first bubble they go in, they were supposed to take them across to intergalactic space, get stuck behind a bunch of other bubbles, and I could have told you this was going to happen. They have no way of starting the bubble from within inside the bubble. So they have to find another bubble. Of course, there's another bubble happening, created at some distance away, but of course they're not sure they're going to make it there in time, but what other choice do they have? Oh, and by the way, Michael and the president got the notice that Earth was going to be destroyed, or at least possibly destroyed. And there was this big back and forth between Michael and President Relic as to whether they were going to tell that to the crew. Michael was for telling the crew. President Relic was for not telling the crew. And like literally the next scene, after we learn that Earth was at risk, we go back to the bridge, and everybody on the bridge is saying how they can't wait for this mission to be over and how they're all going to go back to Earth and have fun on Earth. And they talk about going to Hawaii, going on some trail somewhere, going to, I don't know. They were all Earth destinations. Everybody was going to Earth. So it's just like being pushed in the wound, like, by the way, maybe I should tell you, Earth might not be there. If we don't get this solved within 17 hours, Earth is going to be destroyed. And so is Vulcan, for that matter. And just in case, Titan's going to be destroyed too, because it's important to tell us Titan, like Titan is some important colony, and not just a tiny colony on a tiny moon around Saturn, where there's got to be hundreds of colonies like Titan all around the solar system. But for some reason, only Titan gets forgotten about. I mean, obviously there's a city on the moon, at least one, probably 50. But Titan gets forgotten about. So, also, the whole reason Book and Tarka are on this. So Book and Tarka go to an old, a planet that had the old holding cell of Tarka, because Tarka stored away negative, what was this? Negative antimatter energy, or negative energy, antimatter energy, anti-energy, something of the sort. So they go and they need to put that in their shields of their ship, because they need that in their shields to cross into intergalactic space, to cross the intergalactic barrier. Discovery already had this stuff put in while they were in Federation headquarters, but Book, obviously, and Tarka, they need to go procure it themselves and have it put on their ship. So next week, with any luck, we will finally get perhaps to see the 10C species. Michael and Discovery are going to go to a planet very near the hyper window, they call it, or the hyper field that 10C is in. Michael says there's no life forms detected on this planet, but it should give them something to learn about the species, perhaps. Whatever. I possibly. Book and Tarka seem way behind, because they've yet to even get, or they had just gotten this material at the end of the episode. They had yet to put it on the ship's shields. So next week, I assume they play catch up, and they'll, I assume, come in contact with Discovery. Now, is it possible that this whole calendar was a ruse to keep us guessing? There are people who are suggesting that Discovery and Picard were always intended to run together like this, because for the next 3 weeks, supposedly, starting next week, Picard and Discovery run simultaneously. That maybe there is a connection between Picard and Discovery. And it's possible. It is possible. Do I think, though, that they intended it for it to happen? No, I really don't. I don't think they were that smart. I kind of hope they weren't. Hope they didn't try to be. But whatever. We'll see. We'll know in a week. We'll know in a week. Anyway, I think that's just about it for today. This was a boring episode. I'm going to be honest. Even by Discovery standards, this was a boring episode. All the good stuff was, I use loosely. Yeah. Good, I use loosely. And relative. I mean, it's good compared to other Discovery episodes. It is not good compared to other Trek. But all the good stuff in this episode was at the very beginning, the first 10 minutes. After that, it was just a cliff to a perilous drop in quality. So I'm going to give this episode a 1.5 out of 10. Like, this was hard to watch and harder to rewatch. I would be happy to never rewatch this episode again. 1.5 out of 10. May God have mercy on its soul. 2 episodes next week, Picard and Discovery. Hope to see you then. Qapla all, bird out.